News Talk on Samar News, your go-to podcast for the latest headlines and in-depth discussions. Join us as we unravel the stories that matter most, bringing you insightful commentary and expert analysis. Tune in for thought-provoking conversations that spark dialogue and inspire action. Stay connected with the news that shapes our world, only on News Talk on Samar News.
Imagine this for a second. A country caught in a classic bind. How do you help your own farmers who are, really struggling with rock-bottom prices?
Right.
But at the same time, you've got these crucial international trade deals you need to maintain.
It's a tough balancing act, a real economic chess game, you could say.
Exactly. And it's playing out right now in Southeast Asia. We're talking big ripple effects.
Mm-hmm.
So today, we're doing a deep dive into a really significant policy move by the Philippines. They've decided to suspend rice imports for 60 days, starting this September 2025.
And this isn't just some minor tweak, is it?
Not at all. It's already causing quite a stir. We're seeing major pushback, strategic reactions from Vietnam, which is, well, their biggest supplier of rice.
Huge supplier.
So our mission here is to unpack why the Philippines made this, frankly, bold decision. We'll look at the economic hit for Vietnam, and it's substantial.
Yeah.
And we'll track the sort of strategic moves both sides are making in this high-stakes situation.
And all this info comes from recent news reports tracking it all.
That's right. Straight from the latest news excerpts detailing how this is unfolding. So let's jump right in. Why did the Philippines do this? What's the core reason?
Well, it's fascinating how quickly things happening at home can, spill over into international trade.
Definitely.
The main rationale from the Philippines is pretty direct, giving immediate help to their local rice farmers.
Okay.
They're actually having a record harvest season, which, on the face of it, sounds fantastic.
Yeah, you'd think so. But how does that abundance become a crisis? How does it push prices below what it even costs to grow the stuff?
That's the paradox, isn't it? It's a really tough spot for the farmers. While their Pele output, that's the unmilled rice hit, 9.08 million metric tons in the first half of 2025.
Which is a decent increase, right? Like 6.4%.
Exactly, a solid 6.41% jump. But that very success, that bounty, is crushing prices.
How bad is it?
Farmgate prices, what farmers actually get paid, they just plummeted, down 33.5% year on year in July 2025.
Wow, 33.5%.
Yeah, averaging just P16.4 euro per kilo.
So put that drop in perspective for us. A third of your income just gone.
Pretty much, yeah. For a small farmer, that's not just a setback, it's potentially devastating. It means the price they get is often less than their production costs.
Right, so they're losing money just by farming.
Correct. And President Marcos, Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., he's been clear it starts as a 60-day halt in September.
Oh, maybe longer.
He's left the door open, yeah. Said it could go to 90 days if that's what's needed for a full recovery for the farmers.
That flexibility, that really signals how serious they are about protecting their farmers, even if it means, longer trade friction.
It shows a real commitment to that domestic priority. And it's not like they're keeping quiet about it internationally either. No, there was a very direct warning aimed at Vietnam. The Agriculture Secretary, Francisco P.T. Laurel Jr., he put it bluntly.
What did he say?
He said, and I'm quoting here, "I would like to openly warn Vietnam, please do not try to do this to the Philippines. If they insist on that, we will find ways. We won't buy from Vietnam."
Wow. We won't buy from Vietnam. Yes. That's incredibly assertive.
It is.
But how realistic is that? Can they just switch suppliers easily, given how much they've historically relied on Vietnam? What are the risks and maybe opportunities if they look elsewhere?
It's definitely a bold statement, puts the pressure squarely on Vietnam. And yes, they are looking at alternatives.
Oh.
Secretary Laurel specifically mentioned India. Apparently, India wants a big share of the market Vietnam currently holds.
Interesting. Anyone else?
And Myanmar. They're just starting to export to the Philippines, but Laurel described their production as huge, plus Cambodia.
Okay, so they do have options they're exploring. Diversification.
Exactly. So while cutting off Vietnam would be a major shift, they're actively laying the groundwork.
This also brings up the whole tariff issue, doesn't it? They're looking at the rice tariff levels during this suspension.
Right.
And for you listening, you might recall President Marcos actually lowered those tariffs back in July 2024, dropped them from 35% down to 15%.
Yeah, that was to fight inflation.
Right, to tame inflation. And that lower rate is supposed to be reviewed periodically until 2028.
So what's the plan now? Hike them back up?
Well, Mr. Laurel is recommending a gradual approach. Start by hiking from 15%, maybe up to 25% first,
Okay.
and then potentially back to 35% months later. He argues doing it slowly would avoid shocking the market.
It's such a delicate balance, isn't it? Trying to manage inflation but also protect your local farmers.
Truly. And what about the WTO? International trade rules. Mr. Laurel seemed pretty confident they wouldn't face consequences.
Yeah, he mentioned the WTO lacking an adjudication body and basically said national interest comes first.
That's quite a stance. But for listeners who follow global trade, does this kind of move signal maybe a shift? Are countries becoming more willing to push the boundaries of these agreements for domestic reasons?
That's a really key question.
Even if there's no formal WTO challenge, what about the precedent? The informal fallout?
Even without a formal ruling, the optics, the signal it sends, it could definitely influence how other countries approach trade disputes. Prioritizing domestic policy so openly, it can have ripple effects on trust and expectations in the global system.
Which brings us neatly to Vietnam's reaction. And they're not exactly staying silent.
No, definitely not. The impact was immediate. The Vietnam Food Association, the VFA, they've already formally asked their own trade ministry to challenge this suspension.
On what grounds?
Citing the serious harm it's going to cause Vietnam's rice industry. And exporters themselves are, pressing the Ministry of Industry and Trade for support.
Okay, let's talk about that harm, those ripple effects for Vietnam. Can you really spell out just how important the Philippines market is for them? What does this economic fallout actually look like on the ground?
It's massive. The Philippines is hands down Vietnam's #1 rice export market. We're talking about 2.44 million metric tons just in the first 7 months of 2025.
Wow.
That represents something like 45% of Vietnam's total annual rice export value. If you look at the first half of 2025, it was 44.6% of their export volume, 42.6% of the value.
So almost half their rice exports go to the Philippines.
Basically, yes. So the immediate impact, huge disruption, signed contracts, especially ones for August delivery, are suddenly up in the air.
Right. Nightmare for logistics and planning.
Absolutely. Exporters are facing ballooning inventories, serious pressure on their cash flow, their liquidity.
And that hits the farmers directly too, I assume.
Directly. It impacts farmers' incomes straight away. We're already seeing traders in the Mekong Delta getting very cautious.
Prices dropping.
Yep. Prices for popular rice varieties like Daitom 8 and OM18, they've already slipped by about 4%, down to around VND 11,000 per kilo. That's about 42 US cents.
And the timing of this suspension, it's particularly bad, isn't it?
Couldn't be worse, really. It hits right during their peak harvest season.
Oh, no.
So you've got farmers harvesting tons of rice, and suddenly the main buyer pulls back. That means inventories swell up, storage costs surge.
Adding insult to injury.
And there's more. There's a new 5% VAT value-added tax on exports that kicked in July 1st.
Another cost pressure.
Right. Plus, they've had ongoing headaches getting phytosanitary certificates. Those are the plant health clearances you need for exporting crops.
Ensuring they're pest-free and all that.
Exactly. They did launch an online system for it in July, but it seems there are still challenges. It really is a perfect storm hitting them.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
And experts there are worried. Nguyen Chi Than from Angimex, a big agricultural exporter, he warned this could lead to drastic price drops for future harvests, too.
Because other buyers might see an opportunity.
Potentially, yeah. Other importing countries might try to leverage the situation to negotiate lower prices. It's easy to talk about trade stats, but this really hits livelihoods hard.
For sure. Imagine being that farmer in the Mekong Delta, peak harvest time, and your biggest customer just pauses orders.
Exactly. The human side gets lost sometimes. So the Philippines made its move. What's Vietnam's counter strategy? What are they doing to manage this?
Well, the VFA, the Food Association, they've put forward some specific ideas. They're asking for things like low-interest loans for exporters.
To help with the cash crunch?
Right. And debt extensions. Also measures to help exporters actually store the rice, hold on to it rather than panic selling.
Makes sense. Anything else?
They're also pushing for direct talks with the Philippines. They want to discuss that bilateral rice trade agreement, the MOU, signed just this January, actually.
The one that runs till 2028.
That's the one. They want clarity on which specific rice types are affected by the halt, and they're hoping to maybe keep some exports flowing. Partial exports, at least.
So trying to salvage what they can through diplomacy. What about the government level? The Ministry of Industry and Trade?
Their advice to businesses is basically, hold on to your reserves, don't panic sell, and crucially, look for new markets.
Diversify further. Where are they suggesting?
They specifically mention the Middle East, Africa, and Northeast Asia. Explore those avenues.
Proactive steps.
Yes. And they've also appealed directly to their Prime Minister, Pham Minh Chinh, asking for financial help, like speeding up VAT refunds for exporters.
Getting cash back into their hands faster.
Exactly. And maybe planning for the government to buy some rice for national reserves.
Okay, so some significant internal measures to cushion the blow and look for alternatives, strategic moves on their side, too.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. A little twist in the story.
Oh.
Despite all this expected doom and gloom for Vietnam's market, something counterintuitive happened with prices right after the announcement.
What was that?
Vietnam's rice export prices actually went up in August briefly.
Up? How?
Yeah, 5% broken rice hit US $391 a ton. Fragrant rice went up to 510s a ton. What drove that little surge right before the expected drop?
That's likely the short-term effect of Philippine buyers rushing to get orders in before the suspension actually started.
Front-loading. Makes sense.
Exactly. A temporary buying frenzy before the gates close, so to speak. But looking longer term, some traders in Vietnam are actually saying the 60-day, maybe 90-day suspension might not be that devastating overall.
Really? Why not, given the volume we discussed?
Their reasoning is that the current big harvest, the summer-autumn one, it's mostly sold already.
Okay.
And the next crop isn't mainly for export anyway. It's more for their own domestic needs. So the timing, while bad, might hit a slightly less vulnerable point in their export cycle.
Interesting perspective. Let's look at the wider data for a moment. First half of 2025, Vietnam exported 4.7 million tons, worth $2.44 billion. Volume up slightly, value down quite a bit.
Right. Value down 15.4% reflects lower global prices, maybe?
Could be. But here's the really striking part. In the first 7 months before this suspension, exports to the Philippines were already down 13.5% compared to last year.
Oh, okay. So that relationship was already seeing some decline.
Seems like it. But while that was happening, other markets for Vietnamese rice were booming. Ghana up 53.5%, Ivory Coast up a massive 96.6%. And get this, Bangladesh up by 188 times.
188 times. That's incredible diversification.
It really is. What does that pre-existing trend tell us about Vietnam's position, even with this Philippine situation?
It tells us they weren't putting all their eggs in one basket even before this crisis hit. They've clearly been working strategically to build up other markets.
And that provides some resilience.
Absolutely. Having that network of alternative buyers is crucial. It means that while the hit from the Philippines is significant, it's not necessarily an existential threat to their entire rice export sector because these other markets have grown so much.
Okay, so pulling this all together, what does this whole situation really show us? It seems to highlight that constant tension, doesn't it? Between a country's need to protect its own people, its farmers in this case,
the domestic pressure,
and its commitments, its role in international trade.
Definitely. And despite this conflict, the underlying reality is that the Philippines still needs imports for its long-term food security. They can't be fully self-sufficient in rice, not consistently.
So this suspension is a temporary measure, but the fundamental need remains.
Precisely. This whole episode is just a perfect example of that complex dance between economic needs, political decisions, and the realities of global supply chains.
Yeah. It's not just about rice prices. It's about government choices and their far-reaching effects.
Absolutely.
So let's recap the key takeaways from our deep dive. We've seen how intense pressure on farmers inside the Philippines drove this major policy shift. The import suspension.
Right, the domestic trigger.
We've explored the very real, significant disruption this is causing for Vietnam, their top supplier, though maybe tempered slightly by timing and diversification.
The immediate fallout and the mitigating factors.
And we've looked at the strategic chess moves both nations are making, the warnings, the search for alternatives, the diplomatic outreach, the internal support measures.
Yeah, both sides actively maneuvering.
It leaves us with a really important question to think about, doesn't it?
What's that?
As we see nations increasingly putting national interest front and center, especially with all the economic uncertainty and climate issues we face globally,
Yeah.
what could that mean for the future stability of global trade agreements? And maybe more pointedly, how might other countries react when their own key industries face similar pressures down the line?
That's a really critical thought. If this becomes more common, prioritizing domestic needs over trade rules, what does that do to the system we've relied on for decades? Something for all of us to watch.
News Talk on Samar News, your go-to podcast for the latest headlines and in-depth discussions. Join us as we unravel the stories that matter most, bringing you insightful commentary and expert analysis. Tune in for thought-provoking conversations that spark dialogue and inspire action. Stay connected with the news that shapes our world, only on News Talk on Samar News.